what's the movie with the dog with the
Air Bud.
I can't remember. It was what I loved it so much, and I can't remember the name.
Dog, starring Channing Tatum.
No, it's maybe it's German. The dog went to the
Anatomy
Oscar.
of a Fall.
Anatomy of a Fall.
Welcome back to John's Movie Corner.
Oh my God. Joe, finally, we touched last week about challengers.
Yeah, that was an appetizer.
It was an appetizer during snack. It was an amuse, as it were.
Yeah.
But you did finally see challengers, which means we are free to unleash the Zendaya segment onto Deluxe.
You don't know what tennis is. It's a relationship. We went somewhere really beautiful together.
I'm taking such good care of my little white boys.
I assume you planned this?
Not this part.
It's been long cooking.
has been.
How long, John?
I would actually say more than a decade.
Yeah.
It predates Deluxe. It predates Popcast. I'm thinking hard about Zendaya for a long time, back to the Disney era. Okay. One of the things I said about Challengers last week is that it is slapstick funny, maybe not exactly how it thinks it is, and that there were things that it achieved that I really enjoyed, but I think maybe some of what they were going for was a bit of a miss, and we can get into some more details. But in the big picture, I sort of had a good time, but I sort of left scratching my head. I didn't really remember very many of the words that anyone said. The quality of acting, mid. But you're fresh.
Yeah.
I'm like 10 days old at this point. You're
yeah.
fresh.
Yeah.
Talk to me.
Totally ridiculous in a completely intentional way, I think. Like a made for cable movie, like, well, Sunday afternoon,
Okay.
flipping through the channels, like, oh, like that, I can't believe they made this movie, like very vintage, like
Yes.
felt very 90s to me, late 90s maybe. Could have seen.
I was going to say 70s.
Oh, that too. But
Yeah.
no, because I think it's like, it's really knowing, really reminded me of May December in the way that it was sort of playing with ideas of melodrama and camp and homoeroticism and homosocial behavior. It's just like sex, like this pulpy idea of sex.
But also no sex.
But also no
Very
sex.
little
Yeah,
sex.
but in like a TV way. Like you wouldn't have to edit much out of that movie.
Yeah.
Though
Intimations of sex, but not.
Every time I was like, oh, this is like a touch too messy or the acting is flat. And then even in the same scene or with a musical cue or with a certain shot, like camera tricks get more and more ridiculous as
Especially in the final sort of like 10-minute sequence.
Yeah. And it just kept pulling me back. Like it just kept refocusing my attention. I thought it was really well made for like a modern audience whose attention spans are short. Like because it was so flashy, but like with down moments, and then it would just like jolt you back, But
like, could you repeat like one sentence that was said in this film?
I mean, I thought there was a couple great tete-a-tetes, like the dorm room fight between the Zendaya character and her boyfriend at the time, who becomes the villain of the film.
Right, when she like shuts him down, is basically like your game's bad.
Yeah, and he's like, I'm not in your fan club. Do you want to lay out what this movie's about?
No, why don't you lay out what this movie's about? Because like I know what this movie's about, and it's not about plot. It's not about anything. So you tell the people what the plot of the movie is, and then I'll say what the movie's actually about.
Okay, it's a love triangle between three tennis players.
Loveless.
They love what they really love is winning.
Honestly, on God, only 1.5 of them love winning.
Zendaya
and the Patrick.
Yeah, the third guy.
Guy's just there.
Yeah,
yeah, he's just doing his Jim. He's doing a Jim Courier impression. He's just lanky and just doing, Lanky servant.
Zendaya plays Tashi Duncan, the Dunkanator, which is
How
funny.
is there not a Duncan crossover?
There was.
Was there a Duncan?
Remember they ate the breakfast sandwich?
No, I'm saying like in stores.
Oh, in stores.
Like if there was
yeah.
like an Affleck,
Yes.
there was like an Affleck
They need to
drink.
name that delicious looking breakfast sandwich, better looking than anything I've ever gotten at Dunkin'.
Dunkin'.
They need to call that the
Respectfully.
Dunkanator.
Yeah.
She's a tennis prodigy. She meets two guys at the U.S. Open for juniors.
Fire and ice.
Fire and ice.
Like, first of all, be funnier. Like if they're
that's funny.
No, but there's like you can play into it so much. I'm sorry. I'm getting in the way of your exposition.
Patrick and Art, they've been friends since Tennis Academy. Art Donaldson.
Art.
And Patrick Zweig, which is a great tennis name, Zweig.
Zweig's a good tennis name. I will give that. Yeah.
They're besties. They hit on the girl who's way better than them. She makes them kiss each other, and then it haunts them for the rest of their lives. Right?
That's the plot.
Yeah.
That's the plot.
Yeah.
And one of them was better at tennis, and then the other one got better at tennis.
Yeah, in part because the Zendaya character, Tashi, hurts her knee after her fight with her boyfriend, and then she swaps guys, as one does, and takes over as the coach of the lesser
It's like
player.
a cut story. It's like
I mean, they wish.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's not about that. It's
No, do you know what it's about?
what's it about?
Okay. This is when I left. Like the first thing that I said when I left is like Luca, the director.
Luca Guadagnino.
Yes, the director.
Director of Call Me by Your Name.
Okay, the thing, having seen Call Me by Your Name, this movie, and maybe one of the other ones.
What about the much forgotten HBO series We Are Who We Are with Chloe Sevigny?
Oh,
Weird,
yeah,
weird show.
yeah,
Pretty
yeah.
good.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It was like
better than this.
it was
Forgot about
Euphoria.
that.
It was
Yeah.
like the tab to Euphoria's
Yeah,
Coca-Cola.
Right. Okay. What Luca loves is a long, lanky, wet string bean of a person.
A person.
Any person. But they gotta be long. They gotta be lanky. They gotta be wet. And they have to. I was thinking a lot about the camera work in this film.
Yeah.
There's a lot of bisecting of the screen.
There's a lot of
No pun intended. No pun intended.
Yes.
But there's a lot of bisecting of the screen.
Yeah.
There's a lot of here's your screen. There's a very tall person cutting it through the middle. Here's a screen. There's a very tall person horizontal or
A tennis net.
diagonal or what?
A tennis net.
Yes, but yes, I kept thinking this film exists purely to film these actors in that format. Almost everything else is incidental. I think this is a narratively. I mean, it's not incoherent. It's just not much happens.
Well-
it's narratively insufficient film. It's,
You say incoherent. I will say.
no, I'm saying I don't want to say incoherent because it's like, how can it be incoherent when like four things
Well,
happen?
it can be incoherent because it has more
especially-
timeline changes than Oppenheimer and Tenet combined.
That is true.
Did Vulture do this? I mean, no other website would do this. Like, did someone map every time change?
No, not that I've seen.
At a certain point, it got comical, right? You're like 13 days from 2 weeks ago, and you're like, wait a second, at
That's
midnight.
yesterday. That's
Like, yeah. It lost me a couple times, but obviously hairdos change, the weather changes. Like when you're like, oh, it's windy. It's the day before the big tournament, which is actually a small tournament.
You've been to New Rochelle before?
New Rochelle, no.
Yeah, I've been to New Rochelle.
Nice Applebee's.
So it seems. Although the quality of the hotel.
Oh wait, was it Applebee's in Atlanta? See, I can't even follow
Yeah,
the timelines.
But the quality of hotel that they appear to be staying in New Rochelle does seem slightly nicer than New Rochelle hotels. Well, again, where's the fact checking people? Nothing happens. Okay,
It's a
nothing
vibes movie for
okay,
sure.
Nothing happens in this movie of substance. And when something does happen, when there is a huge rupture, which spoiler alert, when Tashi revisits her past,
Yep.
potentially as a business maneuver to protect her husband. When that happens, it is so jarring. It's not motivated. It doesn't even feel like it's not sexually motivated. It's not emotionally motivated. Maybe it's corporately motivated, but
It's competitively motivated.
yeah, but also the thing, this comes back to Zendaya and Zendaya holding the center of this film,
Yep.
literally and metaphorically, with a relatively narrow range of emotions, not showing a lot, really not showing a lot. And if I, as the viewer, am meant to be like invested in both Tashi's narrative as a fallen champion, looking to find salvation, looking to find purpose by helping art become artful, I never feel that. If I'm trying to believe in Tashi learning to access something primal and like a sexual awakening by revisiting what she had with Patrick.
No, I don't
later
think
in the
it's
film.
that.
No, I don't
Yeah.
think it's that either. But I'm
Yeah,
saying
yeah.
if it's that, I don't think that's there either. There is a fundamental flatness at the core of the film. And the reason I said that the film is slapstick is because part of what makes slapstick is like there's no narrative power and stuff. There's sight gags. And
Lot of
there's
sight
so many,
gags.
there's sight gags and then there's sight sensuality in this film. I don't think there's any narrative firmness.
No, I don't either. But I think the Zendaya trick is exactly that flatness that you're describing. And I have this
But it
push and
works
pull.
on Euphoria. It doesn't work here.
I have this push and pull with her in everything, basically. I have it in Euphoria when Rue is like so annoying and so guileless and so frustrating for 80 to 90% of the show. And then she can just jolt you into place, you know, with a crazy monologue, with a reaction. That's why the come on in this movie, the tennis come on, which she does basically once near the beginning and once near the end. I think all that Zendaya coil is for those moments. I think you get the come on in Euphoria. I had the same issue with her in Dune, where I'm like, okay, why do you still feel like Zendaya or Rue, but you're in the middle of a galactic civil war, and yet she has a certain low-key star power where she always brings it home for me. Like I'm always like, my mind starts to wonder, and I'm like, is Zendaya a bad actress? And then she's like, nope, got you. And I think like she plays that.
Do you think she's one note but not bad?
I think she's one note but amazing. And like
Okay.
she's like a cobra or something. Like she's doing nothing and then all of a sudden she's in your face. And like I know what you're feeling and I feel it too. And then she
You know what you sound like?
spits.
You know what you sound like? There's that certain slice of Rihanna stands or Dua stands.
Go ahead,
Head
Queen, give us nothing. Yeah.
Or like, look how strategically she's deploying boredom. That makes her a creative genius. No, I'm saying, but that's what you're saying. Okay. Can I read you something from a review of this movie?
Yeah, go ahead.
Zendaya, though, plays a high school student with the seriousness of a grad student. Even when she's manipulating others to her will, she doesn't seem to be even a little thrilled. Except, got you, that's not a review of this movie. That's a review of Zapped, a Disney Channel movie from 10 years ago by me in the Times. And that Zendaya is exactly the same as the Zendaya we get now.
100%.
And if you're telling me that this is an ongoing, thought through, intentional project, that is one read. Or if it's an actress who is stuck in a mode and is not being pushed out of that mode, or is only being afforded opportunities in this mode, maybe it's that. Now, in Euphoria, I've not seen all of Euphoria like you have, but I've seen enough. I think it works on Euphoria because there's something fundamentally desolate about the characters in Euphoria. I've not seen Dune. That's why I texted you yesterday. You have seen Dune.
Oh, yeah,
What's
both.
the vibe in Dune?
Well, she has a very small role in the first one, which
It's not a major.
which the Zendaya fans were not happy about because she was a big part of the trailer, and then she's just basically like an apparition.
They weaponized her in the trailer.
Oh, they did.
Can't believe it.
She's a bigger role in the second.
Okay.
In the second one,
You've seen both.
Oh yeah.
Same vibe?
Yes, although I don't think she has as much payoff in Dune as I would have liked. But she's the same. She always plays basically the same character through the universe. But I think that's what makes her such a star is she's like, at a certain point,
You're so duocoded. It's crazy.
at a certain point in Tom Cruise's career, he can only play Tom
yes.
Cruise. She's doing that.
But at
since
age 27,
Nickelodeon.
she's like not even 30.
But here's the thing. I have seen a bad Zendaya performance, and I know the difference. And I've seen a bad Zendaya performance in a Sam Levinson creation. It works in Euphoria. It does not work in Malcolm and Marie, which is the COVID two-hander that she does with John David Washington, where it's basically just them arguing in black and white in a nice LA house for, 85 minutes, saying mean things about each other, about how he stole her career to make a hit film, or rather stole her life story, her addiction, to make a hit film.
It's like what's the movie with the dog with the
Air Bud.
I can't remember. It was what I loved it so much, and I can't remember the name.
Tell me more. Dog, starring Channing Tatum.
No, it's maybe it's German. Came out last year. The dog went to the
Anatomy
Oscar.
of a Fall.
Anatomy of a Fall.
Welcome back to John's movie corner.
Oh my gosh! Wow, Anatomy of a Fall. So you're saying it's Anatomy of Malcolm
and Marie is
Anatomy of a Fall,
less successful version of Anatomy of a Fall.
It's getting a C- in the anatomy class.
But I actually think what it tells me is that Zendaya needs that room to simmer.
Yeah,
You're just all the way out on Zendaya, the most bankable, biggest movie star of her generation.
No, because do you know who the auteur of Zendaya's career is? It's Law Roach.
Okay.
It's Law Roach. Law Roach, Zendaya's stylist, who has done an immaculate job of making Zendaya seem aesthetically provocative, creatively considered, a regular, true A-list red carpet presence, like genuinely understood how to take this person, form whatever the right alliance is that a stylist has to form with houses and vintage dealers and so on and so forth, and is inserting Zendaya into red carpet history and fashion history, which is amplifying the narrative of her A-list celebrity, and actually doing a lot of work that the acting itself is not doing.
First time I believe that you dress Zendaya.
Look at her slaying.
Law Roach, absolutely killing it. Like an A-plus job.
So you liked the tennis-themed premiere looks?
Most of them were good. There were a couple that
But
were,
as a concept,
yes,
the idea that she was wearing basically tennis outfits to the premieres of a movie about tennis.
I mean, they're artful, high-end, tennis-adjacent outfits, and I think it's okay to be a tiny bit, like, little winky.
Especially for a film like this.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing is that. So I actually don't mind it. And if the plan is going to be in every cycle of outfits, we're going to have thematic through lines. We're going to tell one big story through 10 to 30 outfits at various red carpets or press appearances. I have no problem with that. I think what that makes me feel is that Zendaya is very multiple clay, and hasn't had no one on a cinematic level, except maybe Sam Levinson, but no one really on a cinematic level has molded it to powerful effect. And it's not that there's no raw gift there. It's not that.
Beauty, period. Like, that's a starting point.
But just also, I do think there can be power in silence. I'm giving you a hard time about the Dua stuff, but it's not that I don't think that that's possible.
She's going to last a little longer than Dua Lipa. I think that's safe
Back
money.
next week for that conversation. But to me, what I really, really want to see is maybe the thing that didn't take off in Malcolm and Marie, which is, okay, how do you want to simmer? Fine. But simmering just to explode and go at the last scene of a 90-minute, like, light, puffy sex sports farce, that doesn't do anything for me. This should be a slow burn. Like, I would love to see Zendaya, like, in a Nancy Meyer, like to explore corners of that and grow into something that starts with a simmer and then blossoms out of that. But the simmer for 90 minutes straight is a lot to take.
A couple things. I think you need the moody side to her. I think you need the angsty side. I don't want to see her in a true rom-com. Just to touch on your fashion theory for a moment, I think her stardom predates her fashion iconography.
It does.
I think her,
but
like,
she's been working with Law for almost this entire time.
Sure, but I think before people knew to look for her on red carpets, it was already clear to people who had been paying attention or to her
Zapped.
very young fans. Yeah, like I think her she's sort of on a Olivia Rodrigo trajectory in which like she was gonna blow up until she blew up, and then everyone who was really paying attention, mostly young people, like whether it's Spider-Man or whatever you knew her from, were like, oh yeah, we've been waiting for you to catch up on Zendaya. So I think there's that. And then just to bring it back to the movie and leave it at that, I do also think it's important that while she seems like the center of this movie and while she seems like the star of this movie and the focus of everyone's attention, it is ultimately a love story between the two boys. And that's given away with the sort of punchline of an ending in which it doesn't matter how the match ends, they just have to come together because they love each other so much. And as she says in the movie, like, she was a homewrecker. Like, neither of them are the homewrecker. She was the homewrecker.
Again, get off Zendaya for a minute. I understand that is what the film is trying to communicate. I do not think the film effectively communicates that.
That's a different thing.
I understand that that's the takeaway, but it does not effectively do that.
Because you were too focused on whether or not she was working?
No, because I don't think that there is sufficient emotional or narrative buildup in even the art. You remove Zendaya from it. If it's a love story between Art and Patrick, I want to see way more build. I want to see way less ambiguity, frankly. Instead, it kind of takes this germinal moment of like, we're kissing because we're sort of like tussling for the affections of the same woman, but actually we're expressing some kind of repressed tension between each other.
Well, you get the masturbation story before that, which leads to the makeout.
But you get that fine.
And then you get the sauna on the back end.
But on the back, but in between, almost nothing. Really, what you have is a story. You have two things happening in between. You have the story of Zendaya and Art, which feels frosty and unpleasant and loveless and incurious, and like, I guess they have kids, but I don't even know if they like the kids. I don't know if they like each other. You know,
the grandma takes care of
the grandma's there. Like, nothing of joy is happening. And then you have the sort of tragic Patrick sleeping in his car, cosplaying poverty, although apparently comes from some kind of like financially supported situation.
It's the real takeaway is the most common kind of sociopath that we encounter every day.
A rich guy.
One,
scheming.
secret rich people, and two, people overly competitive about their youth sports days.
I mean, honestly, it's all dime square.
I love them. I love both. I love both types.
We see y'all outside. And so none of that in the middle holds water. And yes, by the time you get to the sauna, like, obviously I know that's where you're going back to, but why are there not 5 more things in between then? It's because the film isn't particularly concerned with convincing you that these two have complicated history. It's only concerned with showing you their beauty. It's concerned with making you, the viewer, long for them. And obviously, if you're doing that artfully, you're longing for them as a proxy for the longing that's happening amongst the characters on screen. But there's barely any longing to note amongst the characters on screen.
I think it's only longing for each other. Like, I was actually surprised finally seeing this movie that people were talking about it as if you're like lusting for them, any of the 3 of them, really. I think it's about them lusting for Zendaya, the Tashi character, and it's about them lusting for each other. Yes. And the time that I felt like that landed the best is in the churro scene, right?
Which we homaged last week.
Yeah. And, you know, when the sugar is all over his face and the other guy's sort of swiping at it, how close they are, the way he pulls up the chair. And that puppy dogness I felt really landed in the cold, in the cold reality of the
Yeah,
Stanford
but you're
dining
talking
hall.
45 seconds of like a 90-minute movie or a 2-hour movie.
That's all you need.
No, it actually is not true. It's actually not true.
I didn't know you hated Challenger so much.
I'm let down. I'm disappointed. I'm left cold. That's probably the most damning indictment is I'm left cold.
Was it all the hard techno?
No, actually, we should talk about the music.
Yeah, we got to talk about music before we go.
Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross.
The goats. Yeah.
Turning like that's the other thing. It's like they're also being funny.
Yeah,
which I like.
Yeah,
which I like.
Yes. The use of music was incredibly hilarious.
And I don't think of them as funny people necessarily who made funny music. I mean, Head Like a Hole, I guess, is like depending how you look at it. Maybe
there's a lot of humor in Nine Inch Nails. I think.
Is that true?
Looking back,
I don't know. That feels like trauma to me.
It's both.
Yes, fair. Music deployed, I thought, to incredible effect. Like really, the thing that almost many times where I felt like I'm just like looking at the screen like these people. Then something would be like zoom 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 zoom, and I was like,
yes.
All right, slow down, Tron. All right, be easy, Star Trek. That I thought was really, really effective.
Should we go out?
A more emotionally effective character than any of the other.
Oh yeah,
people.
and all worked together to me.
No, we shouldn't go out with it because I found something in my researching of Zendaya's early days. I was doing some deep digs in the IMDb. I'm gonna be candid. I haven't seen that much of Shake It Up. I haven't seen that much of. I've seen more of Casey Undercover than of Shake It Up. But when I was going back deep in the IMDb, I came across some collaborative work between Zendaya and Bella Thorne.
Wow.
And
this predates her duet with Dominic Fike.
Sure does. So there were a few music videos. Zendaya had a few like hits as a musician. Replay, I think, was one of them.
Hollywood Records?
Yeah, of course. I'm almost sure it's Hollywood Records. But this song really does tie the look together, ties the room together. This is Bella Thorne and Zendaya singing "Fashion Is My Kryptonite."
Yo, we got that moves. Walking down the street in a dancer shoes. High top sun and I'm ready to roll. My superstar out of control. Hold up, I got something to say. Our fashion sense is A-OK. Walking your way, so you better look right for a double dose of sugar and spice.